If you've ever thought about switching to Linux, chances are you've already seen the promise. Faster performance, no forced updates, total control, no bloat, no corporate surveillance, a system that respects you instead of monetizing you. And if you run a YouTube channel like Linux Chronicle, you've probably seen the enthusiasm in the comments too. People saying they'll never go back. People claiming Linux changed everything. People declaring it's the future of computing. But here's the hidden truth. Nobody tells you clearly enough, switching to Linux is not just installing a new operating system, it's changing your relationship with your computer. And that change comes with real benefits, real trade-offs, and some realities that can either empower you or frustrate you, depending on what you expect. The first hidden truth is this: Linux will not magically fix everything overnight. Yes, it can feel faster. Yes, it can feel cleaner. Yes, it can feel liberating. But the experience depends heavily on your hardware, your expectations, and your willingness to learn. If you're switching from Windows because you're tired of ads in the start menu or forced reboots at the worst possible time, Linux will feel like a breath of fresh air. If you're switching because you think it will instantly run every Windows app and every game without effort, you're going to hit friction. Let's start with the pros, because they're real and they matter. The first thing most new Linux users notice is performance. Many Linux distributions feel lighter, more responsive, and more efficient. That's not just imagination. Linux distributions typically ship without the background telemetry, bundled apps, and pre-installed promotional software that weigh down many commercial operating systems. When you boot into a well-optimized Linux desktop, you often see lower RAM usage, fewer background services, and faster startup times. On older hardware especially, Linux can feel like you upgraded your computer without spending a dollar. Another major advantage is control. On Linux, you choose your desktop environment. You choose your window manager, you choose your file system, you choose when and how updates happen. You're not locked into a single interface paradigm. You're not forced into a specific app store. If you don't like how something works, you can often change it. That level of customization is intoxicating for power users. It transforms the computer from a locked appliance into a flexible tool. Then there's privacy. Linux distributions generally do not collect invasive telemetry by default. There's no built-in advertising ID tied to your account, no forced cloud integration, no mandatory data sharing agreements hidden behind vague language. That doesn't mean Linux automatically makes you anonymous online, but it does mean the operating system itself isn't constantly reporting back to a central corporation. For users concerned about digital autonomy, that matters deeply. Software management is another powerful benefit. Package managers allow you to install, update, and remove software from centralized repositories with a single command or click. Instead of hunting down installers on random websites, you can install most applications from curated sources. Updates are system-wide. You update everything at once. The operating system and applications move together in a consistent ecosystem. Once you get used to that model, it feels cleaner and more logical than downloading individual installers. And let's talk about cost. Most Linux distributions are free, completely free. You can download them, install them on multiple machines, modify them, and share them without paying licensing fees. For students, developers, hobbyists, or people in regions where software costs are prohibitive, this is transformative. You're not budgeting for activation keys. You're not worrying about subscription tiers. You own your system in a way that feels fundamentally different. Security is often cited as a major advantage too. Linux's permission model, repository-based software distribution, and strong separation between user and root privileges create a robust baseline. Malware exists, but it's less common on desktop Linux compared to mainstream consumer systems. The open-source nature of Linux also means vulnerabilities are often discovered and patched quickly by a global community. But here's the reality check. Security still depends on you. If you disable safeguards, install random scripts from unverified sources, or ignore updates, you can compromise your system just like anywhere else. Now let's shift to the cons, because this is where the hidden truth becomes important. Compatibility is the biggest hurdle for many new users. If your workflow depends on specific Windows-only software, switching to Linux may require alternatives or workarounds. Tools like compatibility layers have improved dramatically, but they are not perfect. Some applications run flawlessly, others run with glitches, some don't run at all. If your livelihood depends on niche proprietary software, you must research before switching. Gaming has improved massively on Linux, but it still requires awareness. Many games work beautifully, sometimes even better than on other platforms. Others require tweaks. Anti-cheat systems can be a barrier. Multiplayer titles may or may not support Linux, depending on developer choices. If gaming is central to your computing life, you need to check compatibility lists instead of assuming universal support. Hardware support is another area where expectations must be realistic. Linux supports an enormous range of hardware, often better than people expect, but edge cases exist. Very new hardware may require waiting for kernel updates. Certain Wi-Fi adapters, printers, or specialty devices may require manual driver installation or community fixes. Most common hardware works out of the box, but when something doesn't, troubleshooting can demand patience. Then there's the learning curve. Even user-friendly Linux distributions require a mindset shift. The terminal is powerful, and sooner or later, you'll encounter instructions that involve using it. That scares some people. The truth is, the terminal isn't mandatory for everyday tasks, but it becomes valuable for troubleshooting and customization. If you're willing to learn basic commands, you unlock enormous power. If you resist learning anything new, frustration builds. Another hidden truth: choice can be overwhelming. Linux offers dozens of distributions and desktop environments. That freedom is empowering, but it can also paralyze newcomers. You start asking, which distro is best? Which desktop is fastest? Which is most secure? The answer is often, it depends. And that ambiguity can create decision fatigue. Ironically, the freedom that makes Linux powerful can also make it intimidating. Support is different too. On commercial platforms, official customer service exists. On Linux, support is community-driven. Forums, wikis, documentation, and chat rooms are your primary resources. The upside is that the community is often knowledgeable and passionate. The downside is that solutions may assume technical familiarity. You may encounter jargon. You may need to read carefully. Self-reliance becomes part of the experience. Software availability is another reality check. While Linux has powerful open-source alternatives for most categories, the industry standard in some fields remains proprietary. Creative professionals using specialized design suites may find the Linux alternatives capable but different. Video editors, musicians, architects, and engineers should evaluate their specific tools before committing. For some workflows, Linux is perfect. For others, dual booting or virtualization may be a more practical transition strategy. Now, let's talk about stability versus freshness. Linux distributions generally fall into two categories: stable and rolling release. Stable releases prioritize reliability. Packages are tested extensively before updates. Rolling releases provide newer software faster. That sounds exciting, but newer software can introduce occasional breakage. Choosing between stability and cutting-edge updates is part of the Linux journey. Neither is universally better. It depends on whether you value predictability or novelty. Another hidden truth nobody emphasizes enough is that Linux won't automatically make you more productive. It gives you tools, it gives you control, but productivity still depends on habits. Some users spend weeks customizing themes, tweaking window managers, and optimizing every detail. That can be fun and educational. It can also become a distraction. Linux gives you the power to shape your environment, but you must decide when to stop tweaking and start working. Let's address the emotional side. Switching to Linux often feels ideological. It can feel like joining a movement, escaping corporate ecosystems, supporting open source. That sense of alignment can be motivating. But ideology alone shouldn't drive your decision. Your operating system is a tool. The right choice is the one that supports your goals, not just your principles. Here's another reality check. Not every Linux distribution is polished equally. Some are beautifully integrated experiences with thoughtful defaults. Others are community projects with rough edges. If you install a minimal distribution without understanding what's included, you may feel lost. That's not Linux failing. That's a mismatch between expectations and the chosen distribution. Research matters. Let's talk about updates. Linux updates are generally less intrusive. No forced restarts in the middle of work. No massive feature changes you didn't ask for. But major distribution upgrades can still require attention. Configuration files may change, Third-party repositories might need adjustments. It's not chaos, but it's not zero maintenance either. Another pro worth highlighting is transparency. Because much of Linux is open source, you can inspect code, understand processes, and verify what your system is doing. That level of transparency builds trust. Even if you don't personally read code, knowing that someone can matters. It changes the power dynamic between user and platform. But transparency also means responsibility. There's no single corporation curating every experience. You're part of an ecosystem. You choose what to trust. You evaluate repositories. You read documentation. That active participation is empowering, but it's different from passive consumption. For content creators like you, running Linux Chronicle, there's another dimension. Linux is not just an operating system. It's a story, it's a philosophy, it's a community. But the most honest message you can deliver to your audience is this. Linux is incredible for the right person. It's frustrating for the wrong expectations. It's not about superiority. It's about fit. If you value control, learning, customization, and digital independence, Linux can feel like coming home. If you want everything pre-configured, standardized, and universally compatible with proprietary ecosystems, Linux might feel inconvenient. Neither reaction is wrong. The biggest hidden truth is that switching to Linux changes your role from consumer to participant. On other platforms, most decisions are made for you. On Linux, many decisions are yours. That shift is powerful. It can be liberating. It can also be uncomfortable. So should you switch? The real answer isn't yes or no. It's how. Don't burn bridges impulsively. Test Linux in a virtual machine. Try dual booting. Use a live USB. Check your essential software. Experiment gradually. Switching doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be strategic. Because at the end of the day, Linux isn't about proving something. It's about choosing an environment that aligns with how you want to compute. It rewards curiosity. It rewards patience. It rewards experimentation. And it gives back control in a world where control is increasingly centralized. The hidden truth nobody tells you is that Linux won't make your computer perfect. It will make it yours. And for many people, that difference changes everything.